we're going to be talking about something that's very interesting in IoT and gets neglected a little bit. In the world of IoT, you're all involved in it, and obviously you see what's going on. It seems like it's a bit of a gold rush. We know that there's gold in those hills. We just don't know which hills there are, and we're not sure exactly how to find the gold or how to dig with it. And so we're all running at different mountains and digging in different areas. But in doing so, we're also finding out more and more as we go. And eventually, we get a better understanding of how to mine that gold, how to find out those things. Now, in doing so, we're collecting lots and lots of data. The gold is data. And what we're not realizing is that there's different types of data. At the moment, there's a lot of talk about data. There's a lot of talk about getting lots of data, analyzing it, chopping it into different sections, and how to collate it, how to move it from one place to the other. So what we're dealing with in this section is we're essentially talking about the gold value of that data. There's different types of gold, and so we've got to look at the quality of the data. How do we generate, how do we find, evaluate, and how do we create quality data? And what value does that give us? And it's from a completely biased point of view as well, explaining about how industrial design and user experience can actually lead us to those good bits of gold there. So that's where I'm going to kick off, and we have a number of speakers that are going to take us through that, and we're going to end with a discussion group. First of all, though, just a tiny bit of background here. I'm Paul Hatch. I have a fake British accent, just so you know. I used to have a genuine one, but it's changed. And I am CEO of a company called Teams Design. The company's been around since 1956, certainly before me. And we are an industrial design company and user experience company. And you'll see a number of areas here of Bosch. These are all Bosch products, Bosch areas. We work with almost all of the business units of Bosch. But of course, we're not a Bosch department as such. We work with a lot of other companies, including Fiat Chrysler and Stryker, Whirlpool, Newell. And so we're very active in the world of industrial design, user experience, user interaction. And these bring us to that confluence right there in the middle of IoT. We find ourselves in the sweet spot, exactly where IoT is sitting. Something else you need to know about me: I am an idiot. That is to explain. I am an industrial designer of the Internet of Things, right? So we do have, at Teams or myself, we have this growing experience. Nobody's an expert in this field. We are still digging and testing that gold, but we are getting involved. So obviously my background is talking about the industrial design of those things, very thing-focused. But the most amazing thing about IoT for industrial designers is that it really does revolutionize the way that we go about our process. Traditionally, we're trying to think of new ideas for new products, or we're trying to redesign an existing product. And in doing so, we're going into people's homes, we're going into the factory workspace, we're seeing how people are interacting or solving those problems at the moment. So we're doing user research and then creating ideas from that. And essentially, you're looking at breadcrumb trails. You're doing some detective work to find out, okay, what are those nuances? What are the workarounds they're doing right now? What's going on in their lives? And you're looking at these products they're using, and these products were designed 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. And they were designed based upon society and needs of that time back then. And so, yes, you're doing your research, you're putting your clues together, but it's still a bit of a guessing game. So IoT is pretty amazing. It is a gold mine for us in that sense, in that now these products that are out there can also be sending us signals and telling us how people are interacting, how people are using those products. And most importantly, what we need to find out is where their emotional journey goes with these products, these things, and these processes. How are they interacting, and are they enjoying that interaction? How can we improve upon that? That's always been the focus within industrial design. So anyway, there's my idiot background on the table. But essentially, let's look at this. This is something I want to bring out there. The Macintosh moment, what I'm calling the Macintosh moment. Let's go back to the 1980s, right? There are computers being built in garages. There's a lot of tech people bringing components together, talking a language people don't know. The general public knows that computers are going to be our future, but they're also going to be big and scary and take us over. And they don't know if there's an acceptance of computers. They just know it's going to create business. It's going to change the way that we manufacture things. It's going to change the way that we live. And it's big and it's scary. And so this underground movement, and very big, big companies getting involved there in various ways, was happening, but almost without the permission of the general public, without acceptance. Something happened in 1984, which brought at least the computer to the public attention, and there was a sudden acceptance as to what personal computing could be, that it does have a role in our lives and can help us, and does have something to do with our everyday lives, and is not just there to take over the world. And so in 1984, the Macintosh moment, as we're calling it, it's when Apple launched the Macintosh, the very first Macintosh. Now, there were computers before, there were personal computers before, but the big difference with the Macintosh is they'd understood what this computer would mean to people, to humans. It now has a graphic user interface. It is user-friendly. These are fancy terms used back then. And so it made a big change in terms of people's acceptance. Now, I'd like to say that we are in this pre-Macintosh era right now in IoT. We're in the early 80s, the late 70s. A bunch of techies and business people getting together, guessing about how the future's going to change because of IoT. And yet we don't yet have the acceptance of the humans, right? They don't trust all this security business and all the hacking and all the things that are going to change their lives forever. We see the inside of it, but we don't really have their permission. So we as a category, we need to find this point. We need to find that Macintosh moment. And only then can we really make a difference with the products we're doing. Now, an old adage in IoT is, he who holds the data wins, right? Get the data, this is mine, this is great, I can sell it, I can chop it up, I can do all sorts of stuff. I win, I got the data. But there's little acknowledgement as to what that data is. Also in IoT, there's the so-called 4 Vs. I haven't seen it come up yet at the conference here, but at other IoT events it gets thrown around a lot. But generally people are very focused on the volume. Variety is talking about the types of data. Velocity, of course, how fast you can talk back and forth. That was covered quite a bit over the last couple of days. Very little talk about veracity, which is the quality of the data. Not all data is the same. There's good and there's bad. Okay? I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but also a bit of a flashback to the 80s, showing my age, obviously. It was my birthday, by the way, so I've got to do this. GIGO, right? Garbage in, garbage out, right? So in the 80s, computer nerds came up with this term. Yes, the computers were perfect, but you put a user in front of it, of course it's going to make mistakes. The user puts garbage in there, and that's why the computer's now spewing garbage back out. Now, we've kind of got that with our data. If we're just collecting this random data, and there's tons of it, we're trying to slice it in different ways, and we're relying upon its quality. We're assuming its quality, and yet it won't necessarily be good. Now, a cake is only as good as the ingredients you put it in there. It doesn't matter how you slice it or what you put on top of it. We got to start with the right ingredients, and then you can slice it up. So this is the adage I'd like to put forward. This is where we should be going. It's he who holds the quality data wins. The quality data is going to guide us so much better. So to explain a little further here, so in building veracity, now regular new product development, right? If I'm making a thing, if I'm making electronic, if I'm making a phone or a chair or something, we're right now where that arrow is. We have this object, let's say a vacuum cleaner right now, and we want to create this next version. We'll call it the 1.0. and it's going to be better than the one before. So now we send the designers, the researchers out there, and we find out what people don't like about the existing vacuum cleaner from competitors, from ourselves. And you know, we improve certain things. It's going to be more comfortable. It's got a couple of more features. I can reach the on-off button better. It has a little bit more suction. So you know, our 1.0 now is an improvement in this category for this particular vacuum. Yeah, we've made some improvements, incremental improvements. And the competitors are looking at the same vacuums, it's asking the same questions, and also making some incremental improvements. Slightly different, but we're getting better and better. And then we learn from each other, and 2.0, and so on and so forth. Those vacuums, the coffee makers, the machines all get better as we go. Now, we know IoT is great because now we get more data. So what happens here is, say if that vacuum cleaner, that 1.0, I now put some sensors in there, and I'm tracking how often they turn it on, which days they do it on, how long for, when it's turned, when it gets recharged, if it's cordless, etc. And so now I'm getting more usage data, right? So then, when it comes to doing 2.0, I'm ready because I can not only make some improvements through my usual methods, but I also have the data that's telling me certain things about how they use it. And so I can make this improvement above what I normally could do without the data. Okay? Fairly straightforward. However, so one particular example here. This is a chemical company who supplies chemicals, cleaning chemicals to hospitals, chains of hospitals. And so their service at the moment is supplying these. And as part of cleaning the hospitals, it's very important the janitors do clean all the floors and they take records of it. It has to be done regularly enough and with enough chemicals and cleaning fluids, and they have to do certain walls and everything. So the whole thing is regulated, as it should. Now, so they then launched an IoT version that will track the amount of chemicals that are being used, and also the janitor now gets to enter which room was cleaned with how much chemicals and for how long they did it. And so as a bonus for the hospital, you also get to track how often the janitor's working and what sort of times of day, and that they are doing their job. Now, it sounds great because now the hospital is actually able to reassure insurances and various people that they are sanitizing the area. The chemical company are actually on top of things and providing a service. And as it turned out, they're also selling more chemicals through it as well. Not only through new customers, but the janitors, because they were being monitored now, were actually being going out there a lot more often and using more chemicals. So they thought. That's what the data told them. The trouble is the janitors were not playing ball with this whole game. They're being spied on by Big Brother. They did not like this. And so because they've got this new app they have to fill out and the chemicals are being tracked in certain ways, they were gaming the system in a sense. And so they were using more chemicals. They were not necessarily cleaning all the rooms they should be, and they were inputting the time it took to be greater. And so the chemical company was selling more chemicals were being wasted, and less rooms were actually being cleaned. And so it led to some major issues, simply because they didn't realize, okay, there's a human involved in this system. The janitor is a human, and this is not a game that he signed up on. He doesn't want to be spied on by this, and so he's going to break the system. Humans getting in the way again, right? What can you say? And so for them, the trouble is they didn't realize this was the issue. They upped their game. They increased a lot of what they were delivering there. And so suddenly the whole experience, as well as their financials, goes plummeting down because they based their assumptions of their 2.0 on bad data. But there was no way of knowing it was bad data without really understanding the human in the connection. So here's a very important change. You know, when we're looking at whatever object that is, and it could be in a B2B situation here, you're just dealing with a mop bucket, or it's a robot within a factory, or a coffee maker, okay? So when we're going from now into the next version, we've actually got to think of that next version just being a test bed. Let's put a number of options in there, things that we think that may lead us to our idea of what 2.0 is. 2.0 is this point in time. We don't know where it's going to be, but it's going to be this great thing, this big revolutionary change. And so let's put 1.0 there. It's not a prototype because we're dealing with hard objects and we're dealing with making tens of thousands of these objects, right? This is truly on regular people, but we're treating it like it's a test. It's going to, if it's a coffee maker, it's going to make coffee, it's going to be wonderful, but they're going to have optional ways to say turn it on, optional ways of refilling the water. And so when you offer optional ways of interaction and you monitor it, you get to understand preferences. And contextualized with other data, you start to tap into the emotion. What time of day do they prefer to do certain things? So preferences lead us towards quality data, because that 2.0 should be based upon what we consider intuitive. It's this wonderful, simple, intuitive breakthrough object. That's the 2.0. It's the big revolutionary change. And it's built around what the human really needs. We don't truly know that. And that's why we got to think of our next product as being that experimental test bed. Now, we couldn't do that in the past. We can do it now with IoT because we're tracking things. We've got to prod the bear a little bit. We've got to understand how the human works with these things. Funny thing is, here's an example. This has been around, this is probably the first connected product, right? It's been around, I'm not sure, 100 years, right? Way before IoT or when we were talking about connected products. But you know what? It is connected, right? It's always been connected. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. But ironically, this sort of office phone offers a number of options of how you can, say, start a call. So I could pick up the handset. I could put my headset on and press the button. I could press the redial, or I could press one of my favorites, or I could dial in the number and then pick up. So there's a number of ways that I can actually just initiate the interaction with this object already. Now that's grown through years, but this is actually very similar to what we'd think of as being that test bed in the future. Because if I was tracking what users did and when with all these preferences, I'd get an understanding of what sort of preferences they have. And then when things go wrong and when it might be points of pain points or annoyance. And so this is all we're talking about. It doesn't need to be some experimental horrible thing. We're just offering more options for people. And so when we can do that, we can chart where we think 2.0 is going to be. In doing so, 1.0 already has some new user experiences, already has a big change. We've got to make that big step already instead of just incremental change and just adding sensors to the old version. We've got to start a new discourse with the humans. We've got to start this new direction and then let them tell us what they need. And if we can make it up there with the 2.0 and the ones before, the competitors who are down here, they don't have your data. You have that data, that quality data. They can look at your products, whatever it is, from the outside. They can do the user research, but they don't have the inside appeal. They see you've got all those functions in there, but they don't know that you're going to reduce those down to what's intuitive. So while they're busy copying you, you're going to be way ahead there. And that's a true game changer that gives you a big business advantage. So the thought is design, at least as a plan, what Gen 2 is before actually designing 1. What is 2? What do we think 2 should be? And now let's backtrack a little bit, and 1 is the experiment to get there. Now, normally when you're thinking about new products, new things that we're making, new innovation, right? There's step, stretch, leap. Okay, we are here right now. Now, an incremental step forward is quite easy to make. It's nice and safe. We can do that. We can do some slight improvements. Now, the stretch, yes, you know, we got to stretch. It's a bit of a risk to get there, but can we leap all the way there? There's a big risk. I may miss. I may fall down the cavern before or after it. It may mess up. And that leap idea is that game changer product or thing or technology, the thing that's a bit of a risk. Now, what's interesting with IoT is, with the added information that we can collect, we've got this nice little safety platform, right? Now we can step upon it, we can make that leap, and we can land quite safely. Now, of course, it's just a diagram, but really, you've got a lot more information to go on to make that big change, and then get a big advantage over any competitors. And they don't have this safety platform. So going back to that, how do we find that big leap? You know, how do we decide where that future is? This 2 generations away. It does seem like it's a leap of faith at this point. Well, there's the usual things that we use in industrial design or new product development. You got to look at societal trends, social trends. What are people doing? What's going on? What's new? What do people want to do? Also, technology trends, obviously. It shouldn't just be born on technology, but you've got to blend the 2 things together. And very importantly, looking at the user experience. How do people prefer to manage their lives? How do people prefer to now use a machine and understand the information they're getting from it? So integrating the user experience into that original concept can be very valuable. And actually, it's in the displays at the back there. The Dremel 3D printer is a nice example of the user experience. There's lots of 3D printers out there from lesser-known companies. Dremel's a great brand to come up with it. But the design of this was all around the user experience, because this is for people who've never had a 3D printer before, don't consider themselves technological, and it's being sold in a lot of schools right now. It's targeted at education. And so what was really important for the design there was, okay, what do you need to do when you're using it? You need full visibility. So there's this nice glass top. You can look at it from different angles. Great visibility of the inside. It seems bigger on the inside. And there's the filament change on the outside. It's really clear where it is. It's not tucked behind, and I don't have to open drawers or anything like that. So really just making it real simple and obvious that can actually attract and help people use things. So this is user-centered design. That's not the new world, but it's a key towards creating things in the new IoT world. And so this is a call out to all of you involved in the business, and whether it's technology or industry or consumer goods, it's really important to think of this as being that big moment when we make that change, like they did in 1984. We have to keep the humans in mind with what we're doing. And within your category, or maybe in IoT as a whole, we can make that Macintosh moment. Thank you.